Hi everyone! In this video I'm going to use the sublimation printout on a 30-ounce tumbler in my Cricut mug press. Please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. If you'd like to join my Facebook groups, you'll find a link in the description under this video. I'm using a Mac, so when I need to print something large enough, like for a 30-ounce tumbler, I'm not going to be printing directly from Design Space. As we know, Design Space has print and cut size limitations, and I need larger for my tumbler, so I'm going to use my Pages program. I'm not editing the photo, I'm only resizing it. So Pages on Mac works perfectly for that. So I'm just going to change the zoom to 100% so that I can see the edges of this background. So I'm using images from a floral ephemera bundle that I got. I believe I bought it from Design Bundles. I'm pretty sure that's where I got it. And there are 17 different designs that you can work with in this bundle. For this tumbler, I'm going to use number 7, so I just drag and drop it onto my screen, and there it is. That's how easy it is to do in Pages. So I need it to be larger than it shows right here, so I'm going to uncheck constraint proportions. I want it to be 10.25 wide. And the height of the tumbler is 9.5 inches, but I'm only going to make it 8.5. You can see that I have a lot of white around it, a lot of white area. So I'm going to change that up a bit. Not in the width. I want these white edges on the width, and I'll show you why when we change camera. But I want to have more length, so I'm just going to drag it down. Lift it up a bit more and drag it down again. So if you look at my proportions, it's showing that my height is 10 inches, but that's because some of this empty white space is overlapping onto page 2. I'm not going to print page 2, obviously, but I want to fill the height of this 8.5, and I want to keep the space on the sides, and I'll show you why. So that's all I needed to do to make it large enough for my tumbler. I'm going to File and Print. I'm going to select my sublimation printer. Click on Pages, go to Color Matching, and assure that you have selected Epson Color Controls. I'm going to Print Settings, and I always select Presentation Paper Matte, and the color on this image is very saturated, so rather than using high quality, I'm just going to use quality. I'll click again and go to Color Options. I select Advanced Settings. I change Epson Vivid to Adobe RGB. And again, because it's so colorful, I've just toned down the contrast and the saturation a little bit. And all I have left to do is press Print. I've already printed this out to save time recording. So I'll switch to my overhead camera and we'll press the tumbler. So here we are. I've done my printout. You can see it. I think it's gorgeous. And I really love the faded edges that give it that distressed look. It looks vintage. It's so nice how it's faded, and I love the way it turned out. So I'll explain. When I sized it in my setup that I showed you, I made sure the printed part was 8.5 high, but I put it within the 10.25. I wanted to keep these white edges, and I'll show you why on this one that I've already done. You can see that from the left and right on the printout, these don't really line up. One ends here and one ends here. So I saw someone do a video where they line them up right against each other, but because they're not aligned, I found that it ended up looking as if she had placed it on the tumbler crooked, and we know she didn't. It's the way that these printouts are, or these designs are done. I love it. I think they're terrific, but for my personal taste, I prefer to leave this gap down the center, and I find that it's not as obvious that they don't actually line up. I didn't want it to line up crooked and look like I made a mistake, so I prefer to leave that gap. So I'm really happy with this one. I love the way it turned out. I better turn on my mug press. And I wanted to mention, you can see this little piece of paper down in the bottom. I put that there because I saw a few people doing tumblers, and I don't know where they got them. I've never had any issue with the tumblers from Crafty Corners blanks, but the tumblers they were using, they put them in right on the metal plate in the bottom of the mug press, and they had chipping and peeling on the bottom. So I'm not really sure why that happened to their tumblers, but they ended up putting paper in the bottom. So I did put one little sheet of butcher paper in the bottom just to make sure it doesn't happen to me. But so far it hasn't happened at all with these blanks. It's been really good. So on one side, I cut off that extra white because I want the image to be flush when I put it on the tumbler. And I left the white on the other side so I have an overlap. And this will give me a space where the ends don't line up so it doesn't look like I pressed it crooked. So all I'm going to do, maybe I can show you what I mean if I put it on backwards. If I line it up on the edges, you can see that they're not, the music lines here are not really aligned. They're a little off, so if they were edge to edge, it would really show, and I don't want that. So here we go. We'll put this on the right way. I've also left it a little smaller. I don't mind that because the background on these is white. I think it's really pretty with a lot of white showing. Okay, so let's line this up evenly. I want it centered, so about the same space at the bottom as the top. That looks pretty good. And then I'm going to pull an overlap and pull it nice and tight. You want it nice and tight. Make sure it's straight. That looks good. So just pull it nice and tight. And I'm just going to put one little piece of tape on to keep it in place. That looks good, and my space is quite equal. That looks okay. I'm just going to add a little piece of tape at the top so it doesn't move while I'm doing the rest of the tape on the seam. Put a piece on the bottom so we keep it straight. Don't forget to take off your lid. And also these tumblers from Shabby Jane come with these little black rubber bottoms that you put on after you press. You want to make sure you don't put it on before. It will melt in the mug press if you put it on before. You definitely don't want to do that. So I'll just get my cradle here and keep it in place while I tape it. You want to keep pulling it nice and tight. They're actually quite easy to do. and fun. I like doing these. If you were doing infusible ink and you wanted all one color, you could cut the sheet 10.25 by, is it 9.5 would be the measurement that you would cut, and you can cut that out of one sheet in Design Space. But because I'm using a sublimation print and I wanted it larger than print than cut, just making sure this is all nice and tight. That looks good. Keep taping. The mud press is ready. But we're not ready yet. That looks good. Put some more tape around the bottom and the top to make sure it doesn't shift. I love this cradle. It's so amazing. Keeps everything in place. Just terrific. That looks great. It's nice and tight, nice and straight. Okay, so now we're going to add butcher paper. The reason for the butcher paper is to make sure that when you have colors that are saturated like this, nothing bleeds through onto your mug press. I've never seen it bleed through on this koala paper or Asa paper, but my attitude is better safe than sorry. I wouldn't want a mistake to happen, so I always cover it in butcher paper. Let's make sure this is long enough, and it is. Should be nice and tight. Good. And you're going to need a heat-resistant glove or a pot holder, something that you can use to remove the tumbler from the mug press and flip it over. It's going to be very hot. And you don't have a handle on this tumbler, so you can't just pick it up with your bare hands. I want to make sure this is nice and tight. Okay, add some tape to the bottom to make sure it doesn't move. Some tape to the top. And I'm going to flip it over. This is nice and tight. Do it again on this side. And this side. I think that's going to be good. These 30-ounce fit beautifully in the Cricut mug press. Okay, I think we're ready. Is that not staying on? There we go. This way. Our mug press is ready. So the first thing we're going to do is put it good side up, right side up. I have my seam pointing out towards me. That will help me to know when I turn it, that I've done a full turn. Alexa, timer 90 seconds.
1 minute and 30 seconds, starting now.
It's going to take 90 seconds. We'll turn it once with the seam facing the other side, 90 seconds, and that half of it will be done. Just take that away. I'm really pleased with how this one turned out. I think it's really gorgeous. I love all the fading, and I think it's so nice. Less than a minute to go. Alexa, dismiss. It's not hot yet. So I'm just going to turn it around so that the seam is facing in. And we'll press it again. Alexa, timer 90 seconds.
1 minute and 30 seconds, starting now.
Alexa, dismiss. Now the bottom is very hot. So I'm going to use my glove to flip it over. And put it back in. Alexa, timer 90 seconds.
1 minute and 30 seconds, starting now.
Alexa, dismiss. And the last turn. Alexa, timer 90 seconds.
1 minute and 30 seconds, starting now.
Just about ready. Alexa, dismiss. It's very hot. The paper's in there. There we go. So it's stainless inside. So it's going to take about 15 minutes to cool down. Turn off my mug press. So I'll be back to show you the unveiling. And here we are back again. I believe it's cool enough for me to unwrap it. Start with the butcher paper. And all the tape. I do use a lot of tape. Very important to keep it all in place. You don't want anything slipping around. Stuck to me. And I've seen some people say, oh, you can use parchment paper, but it's really not recommended. The difference is parchment paper has silicone in it, so it doesn't absorb moisture. And you saw when I was pressing, there was some steam. It's not smoke, it's steam, because of course ink is moist. So the heat causes it to steam. If you have parchment paper, you risk the ink smearing because it's not being absorbed into the butcher paper. And that's why you want to use butcher paper. Let's see where I can get something loose. Maybe here. I'm so anxious to see this one. Come on. Oh, that's not lifting. Got it. There we go. Oh, it's pretty. So much tape. Oh, look how gorgeous it is. Isn't that beautiful? Oh, it's gorgeous. I'm so pleased. And I prefer this gap Things don't really line up in this design. The edges don't really line up, so rather than have them touch and look crooked, I prefer to have that gap. I think that's much prettier. So I need to buff this off. We have some sublimation paper is very linty, I find. So sometimes after you press, you have some white specks and you just need to take a lint-free cloth and buff them off. Isn't that gorgeous? I love it. And I love all the distressed look. I think that's so pretty. Beautiful. So now it's cool enough, I'll add my rubber base. We just peel them off and center it up. Hopefully, that doesn't look too bad. Add the rubber base. And it's still a little bit warm, so I won't put the lid on just yet. So these tumblers from Crafty Corners blanks are beautiful, and as you saw with the 30 ounce, they fit perfectly in the Cricut mug press. Absolutely gorgeous. So thrilled. I hope that you've enjoyed this video. I hope that it will help you make some 30 ounce tumblers with the Cricut mug press. Thank you for watching.